You say you're stuck, but what if you're not? What if stuck is just a story you tell yourself to avoid the truth? The truth that you're not stuck, you're scared. Scared of what happens if you actually move, scared of what happens if you actually win, scared of what happens if you finally stop hiding. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more proof. You need a decision. A decision to stop waiting for the fear to leave and start walking with it. Because the life you want, it's not waiting for you, it's waiting on you, and the only way out is through. Part 1. You're not stuck. You're scared. You say you're stuck. Stuck in your job, stuck in your routine, stuck in a life that feels too small for you. But what if I told you you're not stuck? What if stuck is just a story you tell yourself to avoid the truth? The truth that you're not stuck, you're scared. Scared of what happens if you actually move. Scared of what happens if you actually win. Scared of what happens if you finally stop hiding. Because here's the thing, stuck is safe. It's predictable. It's comfortable. And comfort, it's the most dangerous place you can be. It's where dreams go to die. It's where potential goes to waste. It's where you convince yourself that good enough is all you'll ever have. You wake up every day feeling heavy. Not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing too little of what matters. You tell yourself, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, I'm stuck. But deep down, you know the truth. You're not overwhelmed, you're under-challenged, you're not tired, you're untapped. And that weight you feel, it's not from your circumstances, it's from your potential, the version of you that's screaming to be unleashed. It's the weight of knowing you're capable of more, but choosing to stay where it's safe. And every day you stay there, that weight gets heavier. But here's the trap. You've convinced yourself that stuck is a problem of time, or resources, or opportunity. You tell yourself, if only I had more time. If only I had more support. If only I had more clarity. But the truth is, you don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You don't need more clarity. You need more courage. Because the only thing keeping you stuck is fear. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of stepping into the unknown and leaving behind the version of you that feels safe. Fear is tricky. It doesn't always show up as panic or anxiety. Sometimes it disguises itself as logic. It whispers, now's not the right time. It tells you you're not ready yet. It convinces you that waiting is the smart thing to do. But here's the truth. Waiting isn't smart. It's a slow death. Because every day you wait, you're teaching yourself to settle. You're teaching yourself to live with less than you're capable of. You say you're stuck, but what you really mean is I'm scared of what comes next. Because once you move, once you take that first step, there's no going back. No more hiding behind I'm not ready. No more blaming your circumstances. No more waiting for the perfect time. And that kind of freedom, it's terrifying. Because it means taking full responsibility for your life. It means owning your choices, your actions, and your results. But here's the truth. The life you want, it's not waiting for you, it's waiting on you. And the longer you stay stuck, the heavier life feels. Not because it's hard, but because you're carrying the weight of unlived days. The weight of dreams you've put on hold. The weight of potential you've left untapped. The weight of the person you know you're meant to be, but haven't allowed yourself to become. And that weight, it doesn't go away. It grows. It grows every time you choose comfort over courage. Every time you choose someday over today. You're not stuck. You're standing at the edge of your next level. And the only thing holding you back is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the discomfort. Fear of leaving behind the version of you that feels safe. But here's the thing about fear. It doesn't leave before you move. It leaves after. After you take the first step. After you prove to yourself, I can do this scared. I can do this unsure. I can do this now. You've been waiting for the fear to disappear. But fear isn't the enemy, it's the entrance. And the moment you stop waiting for it to leave and start walking with it, everything changes. Not because the fear is gone, but because it no longer controls you. It no longer holds the pen to your story. You do. You say you're stuck. But let me ask you this. What are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of failing? Or are you afraid of what happens if you actually succeed? Because success, it's not just about getting more, it's about becoming more. And that kind of becoming, it's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. But it's worth it. So here's the truth. You're not so scared. And the only way to move past the fear is to move through it. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Because the life you want, it's waiting. And the only thing standing in your way is you. Part 2. Fear of failure? No. Fear of success. You say you're afraid to fail, but is that really true, or is it just a story you tell yourself to stay safe? Because failure, you've tasted it before, you've survived it, you've learned how to live with it. But success? That's uncharted territory. That's the place where you can't hide anymore. You say you fear falling, but what if the real fear is flying? What if the real terror is becoming everything you were born to be? Because here's the truth. Success demands more of you than failure ever will. Failure lets you stay small. It lets you hide in the shadows unnoticed. But success, it puts you in the spotlight. It makes you show up fully, boldly, without excuses. And that kind of exposure, it's terrifying, because it means you can't pretend anymore. You can't blame the system. You can't hide behind almost. You've been rehearsing your failure for years, telling yourself stories like, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, what if I mess it up? But here's the twist. You're not protecting yourself from pain. You're protecting yourself from power. Because deep down, you know, if you actually went all in, you'd change everything. And that kind of change, it's not just external, it's internal. It's identity level. Success doesn't just give you more, it demands more. More focus, more discipline, more truth. And that truth, it scares you, because it means letting go of who you've been to become who you're meant to be. And that's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. It's the kind of growth that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. You say you're close, almost ready, almost there. But let me ask you this. How long have you been almost? Because almost is a hiding place. It sounds like progress, but it's really just fear in disguise. It's the illusion of movement without the risk of commitment. And the longer you stay in almost, the more you convince yourself that you're making progress, when really you're just standing still. You tell yourself, I just need a little more time, a little more clarity, a little more confidence. But here's the truth. You don't need more time. You need more courage. Because the delay isn't about preparation. It's about protection. You're protecting yourself from the weight of your own greatness, from the responsibility that comes with stepping into your full potential. You've been rehearsing your potential instead of releasing it. You've been circling the runway but never taking off. Why? Because once you launch, there's no turning back. No more hiding behind someday. No more blaming the weather. No more waiting for permission. And that kind of freedom, it's terrifying, because it's yours. And once you claim it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending you don't know what you're capable of. You've convinced yourself that almost is safer, that it's smart, that it's strategic. But let me ask you this. How many dreams have died in the waiting room of almost? How many versions of you never made it past the planning stage? Because almost doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. And the longer you stay there, the heavier it gets, the harder it becomes to move. And the more you convince yourself that almost is progress, the more you lose sight of what's possible. You weren't born to be almost. You weren't built for someday. You were made to move, to rise, to risk. And yes, it's scary, but so is regret. So is waking up one day and realizing you never gave yourself a real shot. So here's the shift. Stop calling it almost. Start calling it what it is, avoidance. And then move anyway. Let me tell you something most people won't. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because you're strong and you're scared of what that strength might do. You've been taught to fear your own power, to dim it, to downplay it. Because if you ever unleashed it, you'd have no excuse left. You'd have to own your greatness. And that's terrifying. You've been shrinking, not because you can't grow, but because you know what happens when you do. People start watching, expecting, depending. And that pressure, it's not easy. But neither is pretending you're less than you are. And that's what you've been doing, not because you're lazy, but because you're afraid of what happens when you stop hiding. You've been playing small to stay safe, to stay liked, to stay invisible. Because visibility comes with responsibility, and responsibility comes with risk. And risk, it threatens the version of you that's been surviving. But here's the truth. You weren't born to survive. You were born to shift things, to shake things, to set things on fire. You've been told that humility means shrinking, that confidence is arrogance, that power is dangerous. But let me ask you this. What if the most dangerous thing is you never using what you've been given? What if the real arrogance is burying your gifts while the world waits? Because someone out there needs what you're hiding, and every day you delay, they stay stuck too. So no, you're not weak, you're powerful, and that power, it's not a threat, it's a responsibility to rise, to lead, to stop apologizing for your fire, and start using it to light the way. Because the world doesn't need another quiet genius, it needs you, fully activated, fully alive. Now, part 3, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your identity. You've set goals, you've made plans, you've written the vision board, but let me ask you this. Why do you keep falling short? It's not because your goals are too big, it's because your identity is still too small. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your identity every single time. Your actions will always align, not with what you want, but with who you believe you are. And if deep down you still see yourself as average, you'll sabotage anything that threatens to prove otherwise. Not because you're incapable, but because you're misaligned. Because your identity hasn't caught up with your ambition. You say you want to be disciplined, but do you see yourself as someone who follows through? You say you want to be successful, but do you believe you're worthy of success? Because here's the truth. You can't outperform your self-image. Not for long. Eventually, your identity pulls you back. Not because you're broken, but because you're stuck in an outdated version of yourself. You've been trying to change your life with willpower, but willpower is a battery and it runs out. Identity, that's a generator. It doesn't push you, it pulls you. It doesn't ask, can I do this? It declares, this is who I am. And when your identity shifts, your habits follow, your standards rise, your life changes. So stop asking, how do I stay motivated? Start asking, who am I becoming? Because the moment you stop chasing goals and start embodying the version of you who already lives them, everything changes. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally became the kind of person who doesn't need to try, just to be. You think discipline is about control, about forcing yourself to do what you don't want to do. But here's the truth. Discipline isn't punishment. It's alignment. It's what happens when your actions match your identity, when your behavior becomes a reflection of who you truly are. You don't need more willpower, you need more clarity, clarity about who you are and who you're not. Because when you know who you are, you don't need to push yourself. You just act in alignment. Discipline becomes natural, not because it's easy, but because it's true. You've been trying to force habits from the outside in. But real change, it happens from the inside out. You don't build discipline by gritting your teeth. You build it by upgrading your identity, by saying, I'm not someone trying to be consistent, I am consistent. And when that belief locks in, your behavior follows, not out of pressure, but out of alignment. You've been asking, how do I stay disciplined? But the better question is, who do I need to become so that discipline is automatic? Because when your identity shifts, your standards rise. And when your standards rise, your excuses die. Not because you're perfect, but because you're done negotiating with your old self. You're done settling for less than you're capable of. So stop trying to control your behavior. Start transforming your identity. Because discipline isn't about restriction. It's about remembering who you are and refusing to act like anything less. And when that version of you shows up, the one who doesn't need to be convinced, only unleashed, everything changes. You've been trying to change your habits, but habits are symptoms. They're not the root. The root is your standard, and your standard is set by your identity. You don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate, and until you raise those minimums, nothing changes. You say you want more, but what are you currently allowing? What are you currently accepting as normal? Because your life is a reflection not of your goals, but of your minimums. And if your minimums are low, your results will always match them. Not because you're incapable, but because you haven't demanded more from yourself. You've been trying to build new habits on top of old beliefs, but that's like planting seeds in poisoned soil. They won't grow. Not because the seed is bad, but because the ground isn't ready. And the ground? That's your identity. That's your standard. And until you upgrade that, you'll keep falling back. Not because you're weak, but because you're misaligned. You don't need more hacks, you need higher standards. You need to stop asking, how do I stay consistent? And start asking, what kind of person would never miss? Because when you become that person, you don't need reminders. You don't need motivation. You just move. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. So here's the shift. Stop trying to fix your habits. Start raising your identity. Because when your identity rises, your standards rise. And when your standards rise, your habits follow. Not out of pressure, but out of alignment. Out of truth. Out of power. You've been chasing discipline like it's the answer, but discipline isn't the root. It's the result. The result of identity. The result of clarity. The result of becoming someone who no longer negotiates with their greatness. You don't need more discipline. You need a new identity. Because the version of you that keeps quitting, that's not the real you. That's the conditioned you, the cautious you, the version built by fear, not by fire. And that version, it's expired. It's done. It's holding the pen to a story that no longer fits. And the moment you take it back, everything changes. Part 4. You don't need more time. You need more courage. You keep saying, I don't have time. But let me ask you this. Is it really time you lack, or is it courage? Because time isn't hiding from you. You're hiding from what you know you need to do. And that hiding, it's costing you more than time. It's costing you your life. You've convinced yourself that you're too busy, too overwhelmed, too behind. But here's the truth. You're not overwhelmed by your schedule. You're overwhelmed by your silence, by the weight of everything you're avoiding. And the longer you avoid it, the heavier it gets, the harder it becomes to move. You don't need more hours in the day. You need more honesty in your decisions. Because time isn't the issue. Alignment is. And when you're aligned, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop negotiating with distractions. You stop hiding behind busy and start building what matters. You say you're behind, but behind what? Whose timeline are you following? Because most of the pressure you feel, it isn't real. It's inherited. It's imagined. And it's keeping you stuck in a race you never chose. A race that doesn't even lead to where you want to go. You're not behind. You're just paused. Paused at the edge of your next level. And that pause, it's not laziness. It's fear. Fear of what happens when you leap. Because once you leap, you can't unsee your power. You can't go back to pretending. You can't go back to safe. You've been telling yourself you're waiting for the right moment. But the truth is, you're waiting for the fear to go away. And it won't. Because fear doesn't leave before the leap. It leaves after. After you move. After you act. After you prove to yourself, I can do this scared. I can do this unsure. I can do this now. You think courage is loud, that it looks like shouting from rooftops, like bold declarations and big moves. But real courage, it's quiet, it's steady, it's the decision to keep showing up even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching, because that's where real transformation begins. Courage isn't about hype, it's about honesty. It's about doing the thing you've been avoiding, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. And every time you choose it, you build trust with yourself. You build momentum. You build identity. Not in one big moment, but in 1,000 small ones. In the quiet, consistent choices that no one else sees. You don't need to feel brave to be brave. You just need to move, to act, to decide. Because courage isn't a feeling, it's a pattern. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Not because fear disappears, but because you stop letting it decide. You stop letting it hold the pen to your story. You know what you need to do, you've known for a while, but you keep circling it, avoiding it, delaying it. because it's hard, because it's uncomfortable, because it demands more of you. But here's the truth. The life you want lives on the other side of that hard, and the longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. You've been waiting for it to feel easier, but ease doesn't come before the action. It comes after the breakthrough. And the breakthrough, it's not found in comfort. It's found in commitment. In the moment you say, I'm done avoiding this, and then you do it anyway. Shaky, messy, but real. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. Present with the discomfort. Present with the fear. Present with the truth. Because the moment you stop running from the hard thing and start running toward it, you reclaim your power. And that power, it was never gone. It was just waiting for you to choose it. You've been waiting to feel fearless. But fear isn't the enemy. Excuses are. Because fear is natural. But excuses, they're optional. They're the stories you tell yourself to stay small. And the moment you stop believing them, you start becoming unstoppable. Not because the fear is gone, but because it no longer controls you. Courage doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you stop letting fear make your decisions. It means you stop outsourcing your future to your feelings. Because feelings are fleeting. But your mission, that's permanent. That's sacred. And it deserves more than your excuses. It deserves your full presence, your full commitment. So no, you don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more proof. You need more courage. The kind that says, I'm scared, and I'm still going. I'm unsure, and I'm still moving. I'm not ready, but I'm done waiting. Because the moment you stop waiting for the fear to leave and start walking with it, you become dangerous. You become free. You become yours. Part 5. The only way out is through... You've been circling the same mountain for years, looking for a shortcut, hoping for an easier way, but let me tell you something, there is no shortcut. There is no easier way. The only way out is through the fear, through the doubt, through the discomfort. Because the life you want, it's not waiting for you on the other side of ease, it's waiting for you on the other side of effort. And that effort, it's not just about doing more. It's about becoming more. It's about stepping into the version of you who doesn't just dream, but does. You've been waiting for the perfect moment, but here's the truth. There is no perfect moment. There is only this moment. And every time you choose to wait, you're choosing to stay the same. You're choosing to let fear win. You're choosing to let your potential sit on the shelf, collecting dust. And that choice, it's costing you more than you realize. It's costing you your future. You think you're playing it safe, but safety is an illusion, because the longer you stay where you are, the more you risk losing who you could become. And that version of you, the one who's bold, the one who's brave, the one who's unstoppable, they're not waiting for you to feel ready. They're waiting for you decide. To decide that you're done hiding, to decide that you're done waiting, to decide that you're ready to move, even if it's messy, even if it's scary, even if it's now. Because here's the truth. You don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You don't need more permission. You need a decision to stop circling the mountain and start climbing it. A decision to stop avoiding the hard thing and start doing it. Because the hard thing, that's where your power lives. That's where your growth happens. That's where your life changes. You've been telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow is a lie. Tomorrow is a thief. Tomorrow is the graveyard where dreams go to die. And the longer you wait for tomorrow, the more you lose today. The more you lose the chance to become the person you were born to be. Because the person you're meant to be, they're not waiting for tomorrow. They're waiting for you to show up right now. You think you need to feel ready, but readiness is a myth. It's a lie we tell ourselves to avoid the truth. And the truth is this: you'll never feel ready. You'll never feel fearless. You'll never feel like it's the perfect time. But you don't need to feel ready to move. You just need to move, to act, to decide. Because the moment you move, everything changes. You've been waiting for the fear to disappear. But fear doesn't leave before the action. It leaves after. After you take the first step. After you prove to yourself, I can do this scared. I can do this unsure. I can do this now. And when you do, you realize that fear was never the enemy. It was the compass. It was pointing you toward the thing that matters most. You've been waiting for permission, but permission doesn't come from the world. It comes from you. It comes from the moment you say, I'm done waiting. I'm done hiding. I'm done playing small. Because the life you want, it's not waiting for you. It's waiting on you. And the only thing standing in your way is the story you keep telling yourself. So here's the truth. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more proof. You need a decision to stop waiting for the fear to leave and start walking with it. A decision to stop circling the mountain and start climbing it. Because the only way out is through the fear, through the doubt, through the discomfort, through the hard thing you've been avoiding. And when you do, you'll realize that the mountain wasn't the obstacle. It was the way. It was the path. It was the proving ground for the person you were born to become. And that person, they're not waiting for tomorrow. They're waiting for you to show up right now. So stop waiting, start moving, and watch as everything changes.